welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. The gentleman sitting next to me has, even though today's the first day I met him, has kind of earned my respect for a number of reasons. And we're going to get into that, but you guys know how I believe and how I feel. And in this interview, you're going to understand why it's very important to use a professional. With me, if I get it right, is T.A.S.K?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the last name?
Marquez.
Marquez. All right, so I'm going to guess you're into the martial arts. It's just a guess.
Good guess.
Okay, so how long have you been around martial arts?
Well, I'm celebrating 54 years.
Really?
Really? I wouldn't lie to you.
So, and I wouldn't question you. So, when you started, did you think it would be your future?
No, absolutely not. I doubt if any person starting at that time, a pastime. I was in the military. I was in Japan.
Oh, thank you for your services.
Thank you.
What branch?
United States Air Force, Master Sergeant retiree.
Okay. I have a very good friend who is a retired Marine. He's a 4-star Lieutenant General.
Wow.
And he gets my respect also. And I hate to go off topic for a minute, but I missed the draft. But he told me, when you're in the military, someone in your unit will give you a code name. You can't give it to yourself. Someone will give it to you. He said his was Rhino. He said, but Wayne, I'm going to call you the Professor. So he gave me the code name, the Professor. Now, I can't call him Rhino. Out of respect, I call him General.
You should.
Okay? Because very few people reach that point that he is at.
Absolutely.
But I know without you guys, I could not do what I'm doing. And that's a blessing to have you guys that are willing to do that. So you were in the military.
I was in the Air Force, 1971.
Okay.
I got in during the Vietnam War. I was drafted. I wasn't drafted. I joined the Air Force, and then my first assignment was in T.A.S.K, Japan.
Oh wow.
And I had done a little bit of martial arts as a kid, around the neighborhood, but nothing serious. And then I found myself in Japan and went into the base gym to play some basketball as a young GI. Heard some weird screaming on the second floor, and it was weird. And I just happened to walk up the steps and looked through a little peephole. And I reached up and saw a very small Japanese man beating up a bunch of big, tall, heavy Americans. And I said, I'd like to do that.
I don't blame you.
And thank God I pushed the door open and went in, changed my whole destiny.
So Japan is on my bucket list, and I probably will never make it there, but it was always on my bucket list. People think I'm crazy because I love the culture, and I surely believe a little bit different than most in culture and how things should be. But so you go in and you're watching, and what was your next step moving into? I mean, you knew a little martial arts because you piddled around with it.
Well, I studied a little bit of the Chinese arts as a young kid. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. So this was my first exposure, and what struck me was this little Japanese person beating up on these big GIs. And I'm talking about whipping. And I said, I'd like to do that to somebody.
So the question, because you guys all know me and I'm only 5'2", just as weird as it might sound, does size matter?
The size doesn't matter. In fact, there's a philosophy that if you put an exceptional tall man against an exceptional small man, the tall man will always win because they both have the exceptionalism in the arts, but the guy has the reach, the weight. That's kind of the philosophy. But if you have an exceptional short guy and just everything other than exceptional tall guy, the short guy is going to win. And then it all depends on the art. If you're talking about grappling, that's one philosophy. If you're talking about judo, it's another philosophy. Aikido, another philosophy. Depending on the arts, the philosophy will change. But basically, if you're exceptional, you're exceptional. And you should be able to take care of business with most people you encounter.
So we always hear that the martial arts revolves around discipline. Is that the case?
Discipline is the foundation. You don't go any further down the pole to get a foundation besides discipline. Without discipline, nothing's built on that. It's like a quicksand effect. It'll last for some time, but it won't last forever.
So, in your opinion, if somebody wants to practice martial arts and not just piddle around and whatever, what age should they start?
Well, based on the studies of the brain and how it's developed and the human personality, if a parent is looking at a child that's 3 or 4 years old and already there's signs of disrespect, there's signs of attention deficit, there's signs of anger management, there's any signs, then that's only going to get more challenging as a young man or the young girls grow up. So my advice after 54 years of teaching and studying the art of the human development, 3, 4, it's a great time to get the child in because the brain is still in mush form. It's still like a sponge.
Right.
And it can still absorb new information. You wait to, and the studies, also prove this, you wait to 9 or 10. If you have a child at 9 or 10 who is disrespectful, has challenges with finishing tasks, anger management, 9 or 10, that's basically what you're going to end up with at 19 or 20. So you got to get them young. You got to get them to the point of understanding cause and effect. You have to get them young. Once they absorb that, then that's part of their personality.
So 66 is way a little too old.
For you, there's a difference because you're childlike.
That's true. Good point. I'm in entertainment. I'm very childlike.
You're childlike. There's still hope for you.
I don't know about that, but I agree.
Trust from the master. There's still hope for you.
Okay, so obviously I'm going to guess that you wear a black belt.
I have it on today.
And how does that rank? How do black belts rank?
Well, according to systems, so let's just talk about what I do. I'm
Right.
an Okinawan practitioner. I lived in Japan for 4 years, Okinawa for 8 years. So I'm what they call authentic, orthodox, traditional. I live there. So I'm not a 4th or 5th or 6th generation.
Right.
I am first generation. All my certificates are signed by headmasters, God willing, and God bless them, they're all passed. So the black belts in the Okinawan system, and again, there's so many different systems in Okinawa, that may vary also. But in our particular system, if I could show this, I have 3 stripes on my belt.
Right.
That is a traditional sign of someone who studied traditionally. The 1 stripe means 6th degree, 2nd stripe means 7th degree, and the 3rd stripe and the final stripe is 8th, 9th, and 10th degree.
Oh, so if you get to 8, you don't have to do anymore because you can just tell somebody you're 10th. So how long does it take to get to just a black belt in general?
Well, again, it varies according to dojo or schools, academies,
Right.
styles. The martial arts industry right now is so varied that there is no one standard except within the borders of an organization. I'm the headmaster of 2 styles, and within my organization, we have the junior black belts because we have such young kids now starting at 3, 4, 5,
Right.
that by the time they're 13th, they're very knowledgeable. And back in the old days, we said, now we don't give children black belts because they're not mature enough, either physically or intellectually, to understand what a black belt is.
Right.
But how do you not recognize, like we have in our academy, kids that are incredible at 10, 11, 12, 13? What do we tell a parent? You'll never wear a black belt until he becomes a man. So we don't do that anymore. Back in my days, yes. But nowadays, we recognize excellence wherever it is. And if we have a 13-year-old boy or girl who's excellent and knows the required material, then they get a junior black belt. Still not an adult black belt,
Right.
but it's a junior black belt. And then they transition to an adult black belt, and we acknowledge adulthood at the 16th year. There they are there cognitively and physically able to manipulate the advanced things that they have to know as an adult and hold their own. So at 16.
So just off topic for a second, where is the dojo?
The dojo is located
675.
675. This is my voice on this side.
Yeah. 675 where?
Southwest Whitmore Drive.
Southwest Whitmore Drive.
Right across the street from Bayshore Elementary.
Oh, so it's right across from Bayshore Elementary. Okay. What are the hours there? I mean, is it by appointment? Do you have classes regularly?
Well, we have more than classes, and is it possible to get my partner to come in here?
Yeah, if you
Just a
don't
little
mind
bit.
standing up over here.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to introduce my partner. This is Dominic Maldonado.
Hey, Dom.
He is the co-owner and my business partner.
Actually, I need you to walk a little this way, just so you don't, in
There
between
you
us,
go.
that's perfect.
And no fingers, please. He's a co-owner of the facility. We have two parts of it. Half of the facility is managed by my daughter. I'm very proud to say that.
Oh, wow.
She's also a sensei in the martial arts, and also his better half.
Oh, okay. So we
And-
can't mess with her.
Nah, no way, because Daddy will be there too. So she runs the after-school program, and then I run the martial arts program. So
What are the hours?
So every day after school, we pick up the kids around. Well, it depends on the school.
Right.
Anywhere between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Then we bring them back to the facility, do things like help them with homework, let them have a quick snack, get a little playtime in, and then they all get a half hour of karate every day. So they get on the floor, they start learning
you.
karate. Yes, yes, exactly. Through the master.
Okay, so putting you on the spot, because it's my favorite thing to do, who is easier to train? The females or the males?
oh, that's very sexist. I'm surprised you even mentioned that.
I mention it all the time. when
Please
it
send
comes
all
to
the emails and complaints straight to him. I got
As
nothing to
they
do with it.
do.
But since you mentioned that, obviously there's a difference in teaching people. You asked me what is easier, a 5-year-old female or 5-year-old boy? Is it easier teaching an autistic child versus a child with Down syndrome? I'm also an expert on teaching people with disabilities, which we haven't talked about yet. So I've taught a wide range of people, right? And in 54 years, I know that there's a wide variance of teaching styles that you have to go through. Since I just mentioned, I taught people with disabilities, and people would say, well, how do you do that? Well, you have to see me do that to believe I do that.
I find it quite interesting how you must be great at what you do teaching, but you're also an expert at avoiding the question that I asked you because you don't want to.
I'm also running for city council. I know politics, you don't mention
But
that.
I mean, you know,
Well, I would say that teaching a female and teaching a male to me is the same thing. They have to learn the same criteria, the same material. They have to perform the same when they take their examinations. I just gave an examination all last week to around 80 people. Every day we had examinations. And I didn't vary anything because, oops, we got a bunch of girls over here and a few boys over here. Oops, we got a bunch of women. They all suffered the same. I'm known as an equal opportunity punisher.
Okay, so we know that, which makes surely sense to me, the younger they start,
The
the
better.
better it's going to be.
Absolutely.
In general, it's always better because, like you said, it's like for us here when we hire, we like to hire people who don't know, because then I don't have to kind of break the bad habits and give them new habits. So we always try to hire people who have the want and the drive, but not the knowledge, because I guess we live in a world of visual, and you know the kids will watch. I'm going to date myself, but shows on TV that show social martial arts and stuff, and I always believe that doesn't sound right, or that doesn't look right, or that's not right. I think, ironically enough, I think some of the closest things, or things that I pulled out of TV, was when I watched Karate Kid, because they focus on discipline. And I think that people think that you can just get in there and beat people up. But it's not like that at all.
Well, it's kind of ironic that you mentioned the Karate Kid.
Okay?
The original I'm talking about.
Right.
Not the second one,
No,
but the
the
original
first.
with
In
Pat
Okinawa.
Morita, with
Right.
Mr. Miyagi.
Right.
Well, that movie was based on the system that I teach. Mr. Miyagi, his first name was Chojin Miyagi, was a real person.
Oh, really?
And he developed a style called Goju-ryu, which was depicted in the movies. That little thing with paint on, paint
Right,
off,
yep.
wax on, wax off. Those are actually hand movements in defense and offensive. And they put it in the movie. The only thing that I didn't agree with the movie, I loved the movie because
Okay.
it talked about my style,
Right.
was the crane stance.
Okay.
And I said, that was stupid. But I bet that was the most interesting part to many people who didn't know
Right.
the reality of martial arts, that you never go on one foot and you spread your arms out like a crane,
Okay,
which
that-
is what they were trying to
So that's
do.
not going to work.
That's not going to work.
Okay.
Only if the person is not there.
Okay, so are you accepting new students at this point?
All the time.
Constantly.
Oh.
Always looking for the next champion, the next senator, the next president.
So, okay, so going back to the movie, in the second one, he goes to Okinawa. Okay? So, you were there. Is it
I lived there for 8 years.
Is it anything like that?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Most likely that was a real good soundstage.
Okay. Well, you know, I go back to what I said. We're sold a bill of goods when watching TV. So, you know, if you mention martial arts, one of the first things the kids are going to think about that are 9, 10, 12 is, all right, bring me a board. Let me.
Absolutely.
Okay, crack a board.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that's the main thing that you teach and the main thing that.
No, in fact, we don't do that. I've done it in my career when I was a student in Japan, and part of the Japanese roughness, austere martial arts, which is different from the ones in Okinawa. Two different ideas about martial arts. But I started in Japan, full contact, knockout, rock'em sock'em, and we had to break boards, we had to break bricks, we had to do all that. So it's a valid tradition in certain arts. The challenge is now you bring it to our society in America. And of what value that has, well, some people will argue on this side, some people will argue on this side. The part about breaking something is simply the same thing as me encouraging my students to be able to do this, and then that enforces self-image. You break a board, what does that do? Oh my God, I got the power to break a board. Children will do, and instructors
Right.
use that as a tool to build up that self-esteem and look what I did, Mom. I simply believe that instead of the board breaking, because how far do you go with that? One board, two boards, at what point do you put the boards down and now the kid, like the system of encouraging someone to do something, you give them a carrot. At what point do they do that because they're supposed to and not because they're rewarded to do that? So my philosophy as a teacher is to empower my students to do things, not only martial arts, but this carries over into the home, into their academic life.
Yeah, he was just talking about that.
You do things because you're supposed to. You don't do things because someone is going to give you a reward.
That's
So my philosophy stems from that mindset. I need to teach my students to do these exercises, challenging as they may be, because you're supposed to then to move forward into the more advanced. Now take that same philosophy, the I can and will, now go home. And when your father says make the bed, do it because you're supposed to and not because he threatens you or rewards you.
Well, yeah, if you go through all your training, you don't have to worry about him threatening you because you can handle it yourself. But that's a whole other. We're getting to the top of our time.
I don't teach my kid violence. That's-
You gave the address of the school. Does it have a phone number?
Absolutely.
Which is?
772-340-3148.
And I know that you're accepting new students.
Yes, sir.
Okay, always. And it's more than just, because you said there's two parts, but the two parts kind of meld together in a way.
Yes, sir.
Because I think that without the discipline, which I mentioned earlier, you can't, and I could be wrong, but if someone doesn't have the discipline, they will never learn to do
Anything.
martial arts properly or anything.
No, anything.
Exactly.
You take martial arts off the table and you take a child that is a martial artist and was taught properly. There are many martial arts that you have to watch out for. But
Right.
if they're taught properly how to develop intrinsically, coming from within, that self-discipline, and then you put them in a school system, you put them in other athletic endeavors, the martial arts student will always stick out. So our after-school program accepts children from the various schools in our neighborhoods. Then they come to our facility. Now, the added bonus to our facility is they're trained by a master martial artist.
Right.
You can tell by the gray hair, this is 54 years of teaching martial arts
We can't-
all over the world.
You can't say anything about the gray hair because you don't have any hair.
And you're barely there, too.
What? No, I have to dye it because it almost looks when you have all gray that you have
Yes,
no hair.
you have no hair.
So I have to dye my hair because it's all gray. And you're right, I have very little. With that, we have to get out of here.
It's
Thank
been a
you so
pleasure.
much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir. Thank you, sir.
We'll be right back.